Hey folks, really excited to talk to you today about some of the changes to the Guardian Druid build as we jump into the Shadowlands Pre-Patch. Today we're going to cover the raid and Mythic Plus or dungeon builds that you necessarily want to stick with, and we'll jump right into it. At the end, we'll touch a little bit on the changes to Guardian going into Pre-Patch, and then additionally a couple little fun things to know about as far as AoE caps. So let's get into it. What you're looking at right now is the rating build that you want to carry if you're running any content here at pre-patch. So with corruption gone, we've lost Twilight Devastation, so our ability just to hammer out massive chunks of DPS is definitely restricted, but overall Guardian is still able to do uh, we'll call it just slightly below average DPS. Survivability is actually increased, and we'll speak about that in detail. For your Ray build though, tier 1, go with Brambles. Like just it's the slight additional bonus that you get to your damage that you want to try to prioritize. Tier 2, Wild Charge, just being able to stun any mob or any pack you see for up to 4 seconds. That helps you cover some ground depending on the encounter. Tier 3, go with the Restoration Affinity. Don't worry about cat weaving or anything like that. That's probably instance specific, and you probably need to understand the content as well as your timing if you want to take advantage of that. Overall, Restoration Affinity is the way to go. It'll allow you to really complement the heals and hopefully improve the survivability of your raid. We talked about Guardian actually becoming a little bit improved as far as defensive abilities or survivability goes going into Shadowlands. It's really Heart of the Wild. Like that's our go-to talent here for tier 4, and really where it mainly helps us, it's just the additional stamina that we pick up. Well, ultimately, like that's a fantastic difference maker for us. Tier 5, go with Incarnation. Um, Tier 6, Earth Warden, like really straightforward. These are kind of the go-tos on these lines. Tier 7, you can go with Tooth and Claw. Now, there is a little bit of a discussion to have. You could get away and go with more of a Rend and Tear, but you probably want to do that if you're into a multiple target raid boss as opposed to just a single target. If it's single target, stick with what we have here. If you're looking at multiple, then go with Rend and Tear. The big adjustment for us going into Shadowlands is having to utilize Incarnation a little more often as far as a raid build, because it was primarily only a go-to when you were pushing dungeons. So that's kind of one of the differences here. But when you're able to actually stack Incarnation up with Heart of the Wild, your survivability and a little bit of your damage really increases. So it's a nice build overall there. As far as Mythic Plus dungeons go, the build isn't going to change that much. You're only seeing a couple actual items here. This is what I'm running as far as Mythic Plus dungeons go. Tier 1, stick with Blood Frenzy. It actually just gives you the additional rage as you deal damage. That's one of the perks because Thrash is still huge in our rotation. Tier 2, Wild Charge for the same reasons that we had discussed in the raid build. Tier 3, Resto Affinity. There's probably more of a discussion to be had around cat weaving here, but ultimately it just kind of goes down to your group composition and really like the comfort level that you have with your heals themselves. So keep that in mind. Tier 4, no change. Heart of the Wild is a massive boost with the 20% increase to stamina. However, what goes hand in hand with that, like it's on a 5-minute cooldown. So make sure that you're going to pump when you're planning on utilizing this. Incarnation, we mentioned it briefly, just kind of improving your bear form overall. Increases your maximum health by 30%. So stacking the two of those, you're seeing a 50% buff. Unfortunately, that's only on the 3-minute cooldown, so you won't be able to get to such abilities utilized in a stack as far as a raid boss goes before you'll run into a berserk. So keep that in mind. As far as Mythic Plus goes though, you can use those talents almost as often as possible. Like that's only going to help you and your healer and allow your healer to focus on their DPS a little bit more. Tier 6, you're going to go with the Earth Warden, so no massive change there. Tier 7, we kind of mentioned it before, Rend and Tear is the way to go when you have multiple opponents, and again, it just complements your Thrash, reducing the damage that whoever you're attacking is doing to you, and increasing what you're necessarily doing to them by 2%. So why that matters and why you've heard me kind of mention Thrash in particular a couple times, it's actually tied to our AoE target caps. So swipe is actually going to be limited to 5 targets now. And that's actually important for a couple reasons. One, like just maintaining aggro and having the mobs locked on you. Alternatively, Thrash is totally uncapped, but what you're really going to have to monitor is, cool, if you're planning on relying on swipe to pick up a mob, really make sure that you've gotten all 5 of the mobs in that pack, or alternatively, be ready to complement with Thrash, recognizing it's still on that 5.5 second cooldown. That's kind of how the complementary build is going to go. Ultimately, not a lot of impact for us. We really only have those 2 primary AoE abilities. So to see at least one uncapped feels like an appreciative minimum. Going into Shadowlands, no major changes here as far as how Guardian is going to play. Always aim to at least have 1 stack of iron for up at all times. So no major change there. Only really use Frenzied Regeneration when you specifically need it and can't live without it. Being really kind of effective is key with this build. Additionally, actually ensuring that you've got 1 as a safety net or backup is huge as well. Take advantage of Moonfire, drop those dots everywhere. All of that AoE dots really can add up as you're tagging a mob from far away. Make sure you're casting both Thrash and Mangle on cooldown, with each of them having a 5.5 and 6 second cooldown respectively. And then swipe everyone you possibly can with your remaining global cooldowns, just to ensure that you're maintaining that aggro. The big thing again with Guardian, same as in Balfrazaroth, make sure you're never overcapping on rage. Keep that in mind. You'll be in great shape. As far as secondary stats go, really it's going to be item level above all, followed by verse and then haste, mastery, and then finally crit. Crit doesn't really complement us that much, but make sure you find yourself a good sim, whether that's on raid bots, whether that's on simulation craft, something along those lines. Any kind of, but there are so many, like Blood Mallet. There's just tons of sim websites out there, so look for them, take advantage, and make sure that you're stacking yourself up really well. That's kind of the quick and dirty, folks. Overall, a little bit of a reduction to our damage, just due to the fact that we're living through the growing pains, we'll call it, of not having our corruption powers or those borrowed abilities at the moment. But any moment now, we'll be loading up on conduits and legendaries, and it's gonna, I'm really looking forward to it. My hope is that it's actually going to feel a little bit similar to Legion content. But drop down in the comments, what do you think about Guardian? Are you planning on running it as a main this year? Going to switch factions or anything like that? I'm going to keep my Guardian on the Alliance side, I believe. And yeah, overall, we're going to still have a ton of fun. Defensively, with that Heart of the Wild 5-minute cooldown, we're in great shape. Like, we'll continue to be, yeah, like probably a lower utilized spec early in the expansion, and then you'll see us really build as the eye level increases, which is like the theme we've seen with Guardian for several expansions now. So keep that in mind, and enjoy your different shape-shifting abilities while you're able to jump all over it. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about, or if you've got any other questions. Outside of that, enjoy playing with your Bear Druid, and I'll see you soon. Later, folks. Thanks for watching.